Hey everyone, this is Tim, also known as the Intentional Millionaire. And as you all know, I got the lovely women in Lennox in the building. We got Tam is in the house, and we are in the wonderful, sunny Miami, Florida. We're here for some training. Our goal was to get in the room, and I'm gonna just turn it over and let Tam go ahead and introduce herself. You all definitely make sure you get over, check out Women in Linux. Make sure you go over, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you take notes. You get your pen and paper ready because you're gonna learn things that gonna help you be one skill away from 200K. All right, you got it, Tam.
Yep. So we are here live in Miami. We are actually restreaming too. So we're live on Intentional Millionaires channel and live on Women in Linux as well. Let us know if you can hear us. Make sure the audio is good as well too on the channel and so forth. So yeah. So today Miami, right? From Colorado to Tampa to Miami and then around the world. I can't find my baby, right? So yes, so in the room walking in today for Fun Lunch. Those who've been to our channel before know about Fun Lunch, where we talk about how to create a real estate fund, how to create a private equity fund, how to create a hedge fund, or any type of fund for that matter. What are people doing? What are people doing? What are they building? What are they into? Met some great people just at the end of the night. And let me tell you, it's a long day. All right, it's a long day. Usually they go from 9 o'clock in the morning. Today we started at 12, but we didn't get out till 11 o'clock. It's an all day affair. You break for lunch and then you come back. And it's Miami, and the last event was in Vegas. The room kind of gets thin after you come back, right?
Right.
Right. People don't come back after they go to lunch. Again, I get it. After you break for brunch, lunch, dinner, it kind of rolls all into one there, and you're not coming back to sit in for another 4 hours. So that's the one of the biggest complaints. Like people who are pros, like we pros at this point.
Right.
We have been to 2 events, and you just know, just put your tennis shoes on, put a jacket on, and just keep it pushing because it's a bit much. But I'm gonna let Tim talk about today more than because I'm gonna be honest with you. I have been up for 2 days, so I didn't catch everything I needed to catch. I was half asleep. I'm not gonna even lie. I was half asleep.
well, you all. I'm gonna just give a little bit of overview of what I got out of today thus far. One of the key things was looking at artificial intelligence was one of the major things, and from the standpoint of 9 out of 10 hedge funds right now is using artificial intelligence, and they're using it because it's more accurate, it's faster, and it can process data so much sooner. And the key thing that we took away from that is the fact that we need to get on board with understanding AI, because a lot of companies that's going to be lagging and getting on board, they're going to get left behind. That's one. And then also two, he talked about another program called Chaos GPT, and Chaos GPT is just is an AI program, and his whole job is to find vulnerabilities in your security protocol. And it does it 24 hours a day, just trying to find a way to get into your side of your security and find a vulnerability. The airline has been using it to find how can they take a plane out. So it was really good to know that, we're talking about money, but we also got to now implement and go to the next level with using AI to make stuff a lot more efficient, a lot more faster, but also get a consumer something that's a lot more accurate. That was one of the things. Another thing was the fact of just really taking the time to understand, regardless of what's going on in the markets right now, alternative investments is a staple and it's here to stay, and is looking at when they compare institutional investors to the retail clients, which is just your average working day consumer, is $22 trillion for, I'm sorry, is $143 trillion with institutional investors, and it's another 143 trillion with retail clients, retail customers. So with that being said, it goes to show you that even though institutions are huge and humongous, the average clients, when you pool their money together, they just have just as much resources and cash that's not even in the markets. Right. So it really talked about how, you know, getting into alternative investments is a way of the future now. And they even talked about how Bridger mentioned before on one of the conference calls on how he even used AI and it predicted what the market share is going to be like when you think about alternative investments, adding to your standard stocks, bonds, and real estate portfolio. So I thought those was two key points, at least right. I took away from it. And it just lets you know that you're in the right room at the right place at the right time. Now it's just an opportunity now to leverage the information, meaning do something, go execute.
Right. And that not only just go execute, one of the biggest things about that the conversation came up today was like being in the room. Like make sure you're in the room, but even further, take that one step further is like once you get in the room, how do you network in the room, and then how do you get what you need out of the room and then execute on that, right? Another thing is building your team, and that was one of the. I think that's going to be a consistent theme throughout anything that you do. Is how do you build your team? How do you build trust within your team? How do you make sure that you do it? We just have to call a spade a spade. I don't care how long you know the person. Do a background check. Mm-hmm. just do a background check on the person, because the last thing you want to do is get into a situation where you didn't do your due diligence and the person has some type of felon behind it. Because what ends up happening is, especially when you're creating funds and you're starting to ask people for $2 million, $3 million, $5 million, most people are gonna want to know, okay, well, who am I giving my money to? Are they trustworthy people? Just by pure background, can I just trust them? It's the same way with the bank. The bank does a background check on you. They go pull your credit, they go pull everything, right? So it's no different than you asking somebody for some money to invest into something that you have an idea on, and then go from there. Now the other part of this, and this is, we met some guys tonight, and we were just talking about why Black Card, or why or who, what coaches do we like out of Black Card. And really what it comes down to, and I say this all the time, numbers don't lie. Stick with the facts. What the data tells you, everything you need to know. Now there's some things that you have to deduct from that data, no doubt, but again, the data don't lie. So when you all are trying to figure out what it is, make sure you're utilizing all the tools and the resources that you have available to you, especially when you're trying to look at what zip code to buy in, when you're looking at real estate, what's the economic development plan, who has money in that area. Should you be the lender? Should you become the bank? And that's another thing we talked about, like becoming the bank of your own resources and so forth. So, there's a lot of work that we have to do. Again, I say one skill away from 200K, one skill away from 300K, one skill away from 400K, whatever the case may be. But my point that I'm trying to drive home is you all got to work to become your own banker, create your own resources in your community. Again, I'm not going to say nobody's coming to save you. I'm just going to say you can save yourself. And if somebody comes save you, that's just an added bonus. That's cool, but I'm a firm believer in getting out there and making it work within your means, and then reaching out to your network in order to add value. That's my thought process. Tim, what are your thoughts?
I think he was absolutely dead on, and I think too many times one of the things we also have to think about when you mention about network, I think we got to always understand when we want to press forward and we want to go beyond what we know, how we normally do things, what want to do based on our new goals, our inspirations, we got to always think about who are we going to associate with, and who we're going to bring around, and who we're going to bounce ideas off of, so we can continue to move the ball forward. Because the thing you have to understand too is with life, sometimes we can get complacent even when we arrive based on what we think or
Right.
we feel.
Right.
So that's why you always have to be in certain rooms, because the room itself, the environment, can elevate you beyond where your comfort zone may be at that current moment, or you may not even have got there yet.
Right.
So I think that was one of the big things about being here is, you still get that inspiration of camaraderie, and you get a chance to still meet people that's still going, older, more seasoned, but they're still going after a new goal, obtaining something new, or they'll even open up a new fund. Because here it really allow us to really think about why we need to own pretty much every part of the process as it relates to business.
Yep.
So let's think about we here for fun. We're talking particular about a real estate fund, but one of the things we talked about is, why not us take care of our own financing? Why does sending that out to a third party when we can do that in house?
Right.
So
and to add to that, right? Not to cut you off. To add to that is, all right. Suppose we got, let's say we know 40 people, right? Well, why can't we all get together at $5,000 a piece and then go after, with some additional help, like a grant or whatever the case may be, and then go after a property and so forth, right? And the only reason why we don't do that, why we don't go after that, we don't have that $5,000, because one, we don't have enough income coming in. Two, we don't have enough trust in the people that we're working with. And then three, we want to know how long it's going to take for us to get that back. Now, one of the things that they did say tonight was, if you're going to do something real estate wise, you need to know that it's going to be 5 years in on that real estate, right? But what if you were in the real estate and it was only 3 years in and you're out
Right.
on that property, right? So again, I think we have some trust issues going on when it comes to that, and then how to build that trust, and how to make sure that everybody is clear on what the intentions are, what we're doing, understanding the definitions of things. That's super huge. Like, what do these terms mean? Contacting the CPA that you could trust. There's a lot of foundational things that need to happen, far as building goes, but that should not stop you from learning, and it should not stop you from wanting to engage. That's just my thought process on that. When it comes down to it.
And I just add to that point that you just made. That's why it's so important, when Women in Linux, when Tam and D really talk about why you want to get your incomes up, is because once you build it from the ground up, it gives you an internal sense of accomplishment. But also, you should be also in that process continue to strengthen your character. So that way, when you build your relationships, you can build genuine relationships, and it's not based off of a lack of or in survival mode. That relationship can be built off of you just genuinely have somebody that you're working with that you can trust. You're not really looking to get over. You're just looking to get your fair share for the work and the output you're willing to do. And I think too many times when we think about shortcut methods, it brings a lot of the distrust. It brings a lot of the survival. So we want to get away from that. And that's why we have to take personal interest in our own accomplishments. And then we partner up to build off of that. And I think that by doing that, it allow everybody to win. Because we got to get now where we in more groups where we are all winning, and we can all bring our skill sets. We can all bring some level of monetary investments. We can bring some level of our network. we can all bring someone we come and have a seat at the table. Everybody has something they bring into the table, and we can build off of that.
Right. And not
Mm-hmm.
only the other part is like one of the things that was talked about today was um, having the ability to uh, build your brand, right? I think building your brand is important, but I also think you need to know what messaging are you wanting to put out there,
Mm-hmm.
and who's receiving that message, right? Right now, they're saying that all messaging, good or bad, is a message, right? As long as the content is out there. But I think we have to do our due diligence, just my thought process, on making sure that the negative connotation doesn't seep into your brand as the forefront of it. You may
Right.
have some negative connotation, but it's not the forefront of your brand and who you are. Just my thoughts. You're drop in the chat. Let us know what you're thinking as well too. I see you out there. Shout out to Elise Hermes. I see you out there. Netta, Brandy, I see y'all out there. But let us know your thoughts, right? On where you're seeing branding going. If you're interested in starting a fund or you want to know more about it, um, and then not only that, there's syndications. Like we haven't gotten into
Right.
those, right? Um, and again, the data don't lie, right? The data doesn't lie. So it's very interesting to sit here and you talk to different people as to what they're doing. Like some of the guys we met tonight, they had a data company already. They're into healthcare, on the healthcare side of that. They're building a hotel in Morocco. Um, and then they're also into multifamily investing as well too. So some people come into this space where they're already doing things, but it's not in a fund. So, you know, I think the fund is the new challenge for them to get it
That's
all wrapped
correct.
into one, because they're going after bigger investments, right? When you're sitting in a room and people talking about, oh yeah, it's a minimum of 5 million, or like Bridget say, one of the fund advisors, he doesn't even take anybody anymore. But when he was taking in people, it had to be a minimum of 1.5 million to invest.
Right. And then he said the one guy was 100 million before you can even come to the table, and he had so many people lined up, he turned them away.
Right. Right. So in these spaces, like $1,000 is nice, but it only gets you the ticket.
Right.
It only gets you the ticket to get in the door. You still need money after the ticket. So I don't know. I found it very interesting for the day. Any speakers that you that you would like to highlight for the day? I don't have my pamphlet. You got yours?
I left
I
mine.
left mine in the
Yeah.
living room too.
um I would say for me, I would say Ryan, he really hit home,
Okay.
because I think for Ryan, and those who don't know, Ryan is a fund manager, and he managed about, I think he said about $1.1 billion.
Oh,
And
that's the guy from Grant
yep,
Cardone's
that's
group.
correct. And one of the things that I really liked that he shared was the fact that when it comes to launching your fund, you just really got to understand and respect the level of trust and the high responsibility that you have when people invest in you, and they look for you to do great due diligence to invest for them.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that's one thing you can't take for granted. So you got to make sure that you do what's best for the consumer. And I like what he said too when he talked about accredited investors and non-accredited investors, and he said that he don't necessarily look at the people that different. He
Mm-hmm.
say because he look at it as, if I can bundle a fund that includes both non-accredited and accredited, that means it's more money to go to the overarching win for both groups of people. And I think that's so key, is because too many times we look at separating, when it comes to income levels, things like that. And we understand there is a class system. However, we do the only way people can get out of one class and go to another is they need more opportunities. So we got to be able to put opportunities and positions in place. So if they want to come on board and they willing to do the work, then they got another avenue that's going to allow them to get to another class or get into a high level of income, whatever the case may be.
Right.
So I think that was a really critical point that he shared. And I also want to say, I think what Bridger shared was also a good point too. When he talked about, when you're starting a fund, at the end of the day, it's really not about the fund itself. It's about how you build trust and how you actually treat people as people. Because money is just the object, but it's really the relationships, it's the people that allow you to have trust, create trust, and then people want to invest with you. And I think that's just so critical because it's not just with funds that actually carries over. It's just life.
Right.
That's just a life trait, but he really honed in on that, and he does a great job with doing that. That's why he
side of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he took the event from what about 1,000 people to now 2,500.
Right.
Because of that. So
but it's 2,500 at what cost? How much each person? How much for each person?
It's
at
like
the door.
500 and some at just at the door. But then if they do the VIP, is $1,000.
Right. And then if they join Fun Lunch,
yeah,
it's 30,000. So
yeah,
30,000 to join Fun Lunch, and then you got out of those 2,500 people, you got 1,000 people to sign up.
Right. Well, but he said though his entire amount of people that he had go through his course, 29,000, almost 30,000 people.
Yeah, so 30,000 people times 30,000. That's where the numbers are at, right? But then you also have to remember when you're doing that kind of marketing, you have to provide the value for that, but you got to get something out of it too, right?
Yep.
And in order to do that, you have to build the content around it. You got to be consistent with the content. I could say he's consistent, very consistent with the content. In terms of spreading the word, in terms of getting the email letters out, the lives and so forth. But it's still work. I'm not gonna tell you that it's still work. I did enjoy the well, when we opened up, I have my moments where I'm listening, and then I have my moments. I'm like, yeah, I'm sleepy, and I'm tuning out. It don't help when you cold and you're hungry and you're sleepy. It's not a good mix. Just not a good mix. But no, for the most part, I think tomorrow we have. Let me see. I was just looking at it. I think tomorrow they're going into the core of things. As the each theme is different. Each day has a different theme. Let me see. I just had it up. What tomorrow's event was supposed to be. Let me see if I can find it again, because I was just looking at it because I was just like, oh, what's tomorrow going to be about? And it's a theme for each day. Let me see if I can find it here.
While you're looking that up, I'm gonna give a shout out to the lead attorney is in the building. He's talking about Tim and Tam after dark.
That's all right. We saw your twin. We saw your twin today on the line.
Right.
on one of the shows. All right. We saw your twin today. Was he an attorney too?
Yeah. TLA, we did see a twin. On TikTok is a guy called the TikTok attorney.
He got competition.
Yeah. But and shout out to Princetta is in the building. How is it going? Shout out to Brandon L. Welcome. We got Netta J is in the building.
Hey, Princetta, how you doing?
We got Herman as an addict in the building. We got Mark in the building. Salute and welcome and hola to everyone in the chat.
I don't know where our business partner at. I don't know where our business partner at, but no. Oh God, let me see if I can find the fun lunch stuff because I was when I was looking at, it, I was like, oh okay, that's the breakdown of what we're gonna be going over tomorrow. Let me see if I can find it again. Oh, sorry about that, y'all. I had it up and then I moved away from it.
And yeah, and I met two guys today, and I met one guy. He actually in LA, but he actually looking to do some development in Indonesia, and we exchange information. He actually shared some. He owned land in Dominican Republic. He owned over 500 acres.
Mm,
And he's looking to partner up with some other fund managers because he don't want to do the project because it's going to be a large scope, but he's looking to partner up. And then I met another gentleman. He was from Canada, and he had over 200 doors with him and his wife. And he said the problem he had was the fact that, everything that he done, he used his own money. And he said, but it had a cap and the bank wouldn't allow him to get any more money.
right.
So he really looked at, man, I need to start me a fund. But he said,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the only way now at this point he can scale.
Mm-hmm.
So, and just to kind of touch base on that, then I let you rock out, Tam.
Mm-hmm.
The one guy, I do not remember his name, but he did talk about how his entire family, he was third generation in real estate. He said his granddad had 37 doors. He
Mm-hmm.
said his dad had, I think it was like 100 and something doors. But he said today he was 48 years old. He said today he had 3,000 doors.
Mm.
So it was just mind boggling just being in the room with guys that's out here that's really churning and burning, but they all run to the same threshold where they can only go for but so far, and now they need to scale, and the only way to scale is through a fund.
Correct. So tomorrow is day two. It's called Market Deep Dives. We're bringing in the absolute best in the fund world as we peek behind the scenes of on scaling on their companies from real estate funds, hedge funds, crypto, private equity, venture capital, merger and acquisition, M&A, alternative asset funds, debt funds, and more. Speaking of M&A, Ace Chapman will be holding an event this week coming up on mergers and acquisitions. How do you buy a company? How do you look for the assets in that company? How do you scale? How do you use somebody else's money to make that purchase? What are to look for in a company? What value add do you have for that company? Do you leave the people that's in the company there and let them continue to work? Do you break the company up? He goes into a lot of deeper dives into that. But one thing he is doing, which I thought is interesting, which makes sense. He's only focused right now on buying wealth management companies. Now that's a lot to unpack in that, right?
Right.
So buying the wealth management companies, meaning that certain wealth management companies already take their customer base at a certain number, right? So you may be a wealth management company and you only take people who have a minimum wealth of 250 or a minimum wealth of 100,000 or a minimum wealth of 500,000. Well, what that does is now you've created the standard of what you're taking in. And then those people are still have friends and family and investing that they're doing, but you also can provide value with other ways that you can help grow that money that those investors have. They're already looking to invest, they're already looking to grow their money. So you don't have to fight them for that. And then two, you can introduce new things for them to invest into, right?
Right.
Into a business to grow their money or somewhere where they can stash or what have you, right? So that's where that comes into play. And I like the move. I understand it. But I also understand that if I'm going to go buy this company, this wealth management company, I have to then also be looking at uh, how they market to people, their
Mm-hmm.
email lists, what are they putting out, and what are they, what have they have already been doing, and why they want to get rid of that business per se, or do I leave them there?
Right.
Right. So I think it's a good move to get that in as far as like buying that company. But what are your thoughts on buying a wealth management company?
I think it's a power move because I think what they're doing, when you think about, based off of what what we talked about, where alternative investments now is becoming part of most people
Mm-hmm.
portfolios, and a lot of wealth management companies are looking to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it makes sense to be on the cutting it on the beginning side of the real transition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best way, it goes back to what we kind of talked about. Instead of having everything go third party, why not buy the company and have it right in house?
Right in house.
See it, because one of the things that, when we talk about acquisitions and talk about business, too many times we always think around us starting a business from scratch. We got to do everything. But one of the key things that we talk about in a lot of the rooms that we be in is no, there's no need to go do that. That's the hard way of doing it. Why not just go buy a business that's already operating?
Mm-hmm.
You already know the profit margins. You already know the overhead. You already know all these things. You just buying the as is and looking to keep it where it's at, or build off of that and make it better, then sell it. Because one of the things they talk about is a lot of times through acquisitions, they just buy a lot of businesses that either the um the owners are older, or the owners just now want to just live their life in retirement, so
Mm-hmm.
forth and so on, or they may have a health change and they don't no longer want to do it. They just want to kind of just live their life. So with that being said, they're looking to sell a business.
Right.
And so I think when we talk about acquisitions, I think there's just a key point that most people really don't think about, because we was always taught around just starting it from scratch.
Get it out the mud.
Yep.
Don't get it out the trust. You can go
um,
get this shirt, by the way.
yeah, so I think that's a great point, but I think wealth management is absolutely a game changer. And
Right.
one of the things about wealth management too that you have to know is it continues to pay you from generations after you. As
Yep.
long as the generations leave it in the proper format, in the proper trust, and in a family office, when you do those things, your family last name can eat forever. So I think those are some key
Yep.
points.
Yep. And so I like the move. I also like to see more of us get started to understand what does a wealth management firm do. What do they actually do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Have you ever talked to a wealth manager? Have you ever sat down and tried to figure out what they do? Because different wealth managers have different expertise.
Mm-hmm.
Some are good at financial planning. Some are tech, may have a actual reach out to a tax advisor. Some have a tax advisor in house, and it really depends on who you talk to and what you're looking for. Again, of building that rapport, building that trust, how to grow your money from, like I say, some people take you in as 100,000 on your net worth, and they help you grow to 1 million. And it depends on who it is, right? Do you want to be conservative or you aggressive? And as always, whatever you do, go do your research on the person you trust in, with
Mm-hmm.
your income, with your ends, with your social security number, whatever the case may be. Make sure you make sure you follow up with leads. Don't be a Steve Harvey. Don't be a Steve Harvey, right? Don't be Usain Bolt, and then the other one that was managing out of that same one, right? Don't be that person, right? So, and when I say that, I'm really serious, because I think between the three of them, just on my firsthand knowledge here is I think it was about 20 million to 25 million that all three of them got robbed of, right? And they probably
Mhm.
not gonna see that money back. I know Steve Harvey didn't. He had to go work.
No, they ain't gonna see that money back.
All right.
But because that's the thing, and that's the other side of wealth management. You know, when you think about what Bernie Madoff done, look at how much he was able to construct and get away with. And so when you think about that, that's why you want to make sure you do due diligence, but you also want to make sure that you take the time to learn some of the things. Because I think that too many times what you find with, especially a lot of wealthy people that do not have the financial education, they put too much trust into their financial planner, their CPA, their wealth manager.
You do
and you do it. I don't want to know nothing, but the whole goal is when you building that relationship, you should be learning something so you can at least have an understanding, but also you should be learning something, because if you have kids, what are you going to teach the next generation? Because if you're going to put all the effort into building the wealth, then you still got to teach it so the next generation don't lose the wealth. So I think those are some of the things that we just got to also be mindful of. And it's not saying you need to know it at the level of the wealth manager or the CPA or financial planner. It's just saying that you just need to know it enough that you can have the conversation with your significant other or your kids, or when you have questions, you can be able to relay your question and get a legitimate response that you can understand and be at ease.
Right. Well, not only that, you want to know the definitions. You want to know the definitions. Like if somebody, says this particular equity, or you're doing a REIT and you're like, what's a REIT? Right? You want to know what where your money is going, at least at a minimum. That's just my thought process on that. When it comes down to that, and last but not least, the other thing too, when you're looking at building wealth and investing and so forth, you should be taking notes and also talking that over with friends and family. So that way, like if something happens to you, or you have your estate set up, or say you didn't have it set up, at least somebody know where something is at, right? Somebody need to know where something is at. So you got to find somebody to trust. You should be doing estate planning, but if you didn't, you should at least be able to have that stuff written down, or somebody can go to your Dear Diary, Dear Money Diary, or whatever that is, and get what they need out of that, and know where things are at. Moving in silence is one thing, but moving in silence is also to a fault, a detriment as well too. When it comes to it, that's just my initial thought, because I know some people are just not going to do estate planning. They just not.
No estate,
no date.
Oh, I want to also give a shout out to Friendsgiving is in the building. What is going on, Friendsgiving? Welcome. How you doing? Also, shout out to Bling Auntie is in the building, and shout out to Mr. Walletverse Media. How is everyone doing? It is an early morning. We are here in Miami, and I got a tan. Can't you tell? Just look at the teeth.
And another good thing about what's going on, Casual Economist. Another good thing about being in the room is here's the other side, right? I don't know if Tim does this. I know I do this. You can call a fraud when you see a fraud. Like you can see a fraud coming from a mile away. You're like, fraud alert, fraud alert, right? You can call a fraud when you see a fraud, not a frog, but a fraud.
Right.
Fraud. You're like, you can tell by your movement that something ain't right with you.
Yep. Something they saying, what they doing, like I don't know about that one.
Yeah. So that's another thing, using your own discernment to figure out whether or not that that person is on the up and up. You can tell by when you're listening to people, you accept them at face value, but when they get into too much explaining and manipulating, you be like fast talking. If
Mm-hmm.
you're from the South, you like, now that fast talking don't work for us.
Right.
That fast talking don't work for us.
But
Right?
but one of the key things I do want to say you all is we're talking about funds, we're talking about wealth management, but ultimately all of this goes back to one thing, and it's one word: relationships. See, relationships is what creates all of this. Relationships is what's going to allow you to create wealth. Relationships is what's going to allow you to have a better financial snapshot. Relationships is what's going to allow you to be able to increase your income. See, because it's all about relationships. And I think too many times this era, to me, and this is just my opinion, this era has got away from relationships because we look at relationships as one-sided, or it's a relationship is based off some agenda, when it should just be something that's genuine, because when it's genuine, everything else tend to work itself out, long as you doing your level of effort, and then everything else will kind of work its way out. So I think that was one of the biggest things overall that I get out of all of this, is you have to build relationships, and they have to be true, good, genuine relationships. And from that, you can build your financial snapshot, whatever that may be for you.
So when you say build your relationships, how are we building a relationship? Is this are we going on a date and we're building this relationship? What are we talking about when we're talking about building a relationship?
So when we talking about building relationship, I think it's all of the above.
Okay.
So when you say relationship, it just means that how can we be relatable? How can we discuss things and talk about where we want to go, what we're doing, or what we're trying to do? But also relationships mean that let me interact in your world, you interact in my world, and then we got some things that we can relate to, but also we got somebody that we can call up on or talk to when things get rocky, when things are great, things are good. See, that's all part of relationships, and you build that through going out doing activities. You build that through just sitting down, just listening to somebody talk about themselves and get an understanding about them as a person. We do that through going out, getting something to eat. You do that through being in the room, and then while you're in the room, maybe you just happen to get up at the same time to go get some water, whatever the case may be. And from that, you just start communicating, and then you're able to build rapport, relationships from all of the above. I don't think it's really a one size fit all type of scenario, but I think we got to be mindful of what we are doing when we're doing it.
Well, I think we got to be mindful of how people communicate.
Right.
Everybody communicates differently, right? So one person's way of communication may not be exactly how they receive information. Somebody else receive information. So I think we have to be very mindful when it comes down to communication and how people communicate. Some people want a soliloquy, and some people just want the cliff notes.
Yep.
Right?
It's true.
And so being mindful of that. Like D want the cliff notes.
Right.
D want the cliff notes. But at the same time, she want a soliloquy. So it's kind of like you got to play it by ear with D. It's like she was like, just give me the cliff note, the abridged version. And then from the abridged version, she gonna ask her soliloquy questions. And you like, you could have just let me tell her soliloquy at that point. If you play the stream back, I love you, but I'm just being honest. Just being honest.
But that's a great point though, Tam, but that's why you have to build relationships so you can start to understand the individual's communication methods, communication skills. But also too, the onus is on you also to be paying attention and take interest in, and to respect that their communication may be different from yours.
Correct.
Because too many times what we see, especially online, a lot of times is people feel like everybody should respond how they respond, talk like they talk, and it takes away from the individual, and then people get offended. And then it could get messy real quick.
You know, all black people are the same. All black people are the same. We all came from the struggle. We all struggle. We all come from the woe it's me. We all had syrup sandwiches.
Mine was mayonnaise.
Syrup and mayonnaise. We all came from the same struggle. All right, so it's just one of the things. I just like, yeah, that's not my struggle. That's not, D said, that's not my testimony. All right. So, but again, we wanted to make sure you all had the idea of what today was. Tomorrow's going to be even longer. I don't know what time we getting out tomorrow. Maybe 11 o'clock too. But I know one thing: I'm gonna have breakfast in the morning, and I don't want no just some croissants that's just been sitting out. I want a hot breakfast with some orange juice on the side. I prefer fresh squeezed orange juice. I prefer or some, orange juice and grapefruit juice. But yeah, when we get our information tomorrow, I make sure we take some notes. I know you took some good notes today,
right,
on what was being said, especially the amount of money a fund manager can make. That's the other part of it too. Like, this is the other part too, right? Becoming the accredited investor, being a part of the fund, can help you become the accredited investor, so you can enter other rooms because you've done investments before. And then, sometimes people don't want to deal with you because you're not an accredited investor. They're like, oh,
that's
no,
correct.
You can't even enter in the room, right? So that's one. Being an accredited investor is one barrier.
Mm-hmm.
The next barrier is, do you have the resources to be in this investment, whether it's $10,000 or $25,000 or $30,000 to get into this investment?
That's
right?
correct.
So that's another barrier. And then the next barrier is you don't even know it exists.
Right.
Right. So somebody is making 20% return, 21% return, 25% return, and we're still stuck at CDs and I-bonds,
right,
which is not bad. I'm just saying there's other opportunities out there where we can be getting more on our return than what we are now.
Right. And just to add to your point, the fundamental though is we gotta make sure you pass a background check.
Right.
No, but one of the one of the things that you want to think about though, when you going back to Tam's point of the different barriers, is you also have to think about the barrier of what is your purpose and why would you want to get into a fund. Because a lot of times we do things, a fund sounds great, it has some pros and cons like anything else, but a lot more pros. But the question is, why would you want to get into one, and should you get into one? Right. Why is that important? Because the purpose of a fund really is for you to scale to scale your investments or your business. But also the thing about a fund also is because it's been known that people now want alternative investments outside of the stock market and real estate. So with that being said, that's some of the things you may want to really think about when you're talking about a fund, because a lot of times people not even in tune that you can start one. And I know Tam brought up a good point earlier today when she talked about the fact that how did BlackRock come to be? It was from a fund. So if it's those type of things that you can really leverage it to whatever you want to leverage it to, but then you can start whatever business you may want to start through you having the opportunity to launch a fund.
And I just want to get some clarity to when we say alternative investments. So I just went and looked up some quick thought process like on what are alternative investments. So alternative investments are private, non-publicly traded funds across different asset classes. And these funds can specialize in real estate, private credit, private equity. Access to these funds allow investors to own long-term investments that create a value in different industries. Right? So I don't know if you're all are familiar with different alternative funds, but the key word in that, are you even familiar with private credit?
Right.
Like that's now we're getting into the wormhole here of like what is private credit? Like how was a private credit fund? How do we do that, right? So it's just those are the different things that I wanted to talk about on that. I just looked up real quick. Blackstone Private Credit Fund, accessing private credit. Investors can access the evolving private credit space with Blackstone's credit platform, and it's called BCRED, and they have a prospectus on it as well too. So again, what is private credit? That's a new keyword for you today. Go look it up. Go look at what it means. Even Goldman Sachs has a definition of what is private credit as well too. So I just wanted to give y'all some insight and definition on when we say what's alternative credit. I mean alternative investments. Here it is, private credit, right? Something you
Mhm.
never heard of, don't even know it exists, but now you do. Now you at least know it's a phrase. And so how do you
Yep.
define that phrase? Who has it and how do I get into it and why would I get into it as
Right.
well?
So
Anything else, Tim?
I don't have anything else, Tam. I think today was a good wrap up. We'll be going again live before we get up out of here, but I don't have anything else. I want to definitely give a shout out to everyone that tuned in. Definitely make sure you take notes, and if you got questions, let us know because we'll definitely work on getting your questions answered.
Yep.
And I say continue to work on and make accredited investor one of your goals. Because that way you can get in some other rooms that you wouldn't get a chance to be in. And here's the other thing about being an accredited investor: you get a chance to get some of the investments that's not open to the public.
Yep.
And because of that, you able to leverage your money so much quicker and better.
Right. And then, as always, do your due diligence on who you're investing with and the why. Right? If it's something that you're interested in, you can invest in it. But just make sure you understand it. Another thing to invest in a lot that doesn't get talked about as much as art is considered an alternative investment as well
Mm-hmm.
too. Those baseball cards, those collectibles, those Pokemon cards, those football cards. What's it? Comic books.
Comic book cards.
Yeah, all of that is alternative, but again, stamps, coins,
Mm-hmm.
gold, those type of things can be considered alternative. But then now you got to do your research on what card, what coin, what stamp, what am I looking for. So you have to do your thought process on that. You got to dig into that a little bit more, but at least you know it exists and what that could look like for yourself.
Right. You brought up a good point because I got a video coming out on that.
Okay.
Yeah, where people can go because art and collectibles is assets that most people don't.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us actually have, but we don't really take advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
So been working on compiling a list
Okay.
of different websites people can go, like price out baseball cards, basketball cards, things like that. Price out certain pieces of jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been doing some background stuff
Not,
because I'm back to doing some
not,
VODs.
not, not the big thick chain.
No,
Right.
not the Cuban
Well,
link.
right.
Not
What my gold teeth? Okay,
not the Tony the Closer Cuban link.
What about the gold teeth? No,
No, I don't know about that. Not the Flavor Flav gold teeth.
Not
What you
even-
trying to
what
say? I
about-
look like Flavor Flav.
Not the clock.
You trying to say I look like Flavor Flav?
Yeah, you just need a clock. Let me get you a clock. Get you a clock. Hermes Attic. You said Birkins. I don't know how many people can afford a Birkin, right? I don't know. Like I haven't looked at a Birkin in a minute, but I get what you're saying though. That is an alternative investment, but again, it goes back into like, okay, if you get the Birkin, are you carrying the Birkin? How do you maintain it? How do you carry it? You know what I'm saying? How do you take care of it? What and I get on the luxury and on the high end when we're talking about that, but again, that's the whole polo crew, that certain polos that that are just authentic to polo, like they don't make a lot of them.
Yep, the limited edition
and so forth, right? Someone say, okay, Flavor Flav. Cartier, Van Cleef on my two foot. Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, there's so many different alternative investments that that could be made. That we can grab. Again, people don't. I think Dave Ramsey doesn't like gold bars and coins and so forth, but there are people that do like gold bars and
right.
Just as that's just something that they got.
See, but I because commodities can be a great investment, because you think about gold, silver, platinum. I mean, if you just think about silver in itself is used in a lot of raw industrial equipment.
What's the other one? What is it?
Platinum?
No, copper.
Copper, yep.
Copper.
So a lot of that stuff is used in a lot of raw industrial material. So it's always going to be around. And it's even more critical now as we move closer to AI.
And chips.
You see what I'm saying? And microprocessors, all that stuff. As we move closer to AI, all that stuff.
Well, quantum as well too.
Right.
Right.
So
quantum. And that was another thing that was brought up. What are the places of investment? Quantum computing and space is another. And I keep telling y'all space. I don't know how many times I gotta tell you about space and the space exploration and what people are doing with space and blockchain and what that looks like. You're at the bleeding edge when we're talking about that. But when we're talking about it from a perspective of not just investing, but also creating companies that are helping with those technologies and so forth. Of course, AI in space is a thing.
Right.
It's already a thing. Right. I don't care how you how you want to look at it. AI in space is a thing. Space and quantum computing, space and blockchain is a thing. And when I say it's a thing, I mean it's a lucrative thing where startups and companies they have their niche. And here's the other part where I feel like we miss out on too, is we miss out on research and development.
Absolutely.
We get the products after they've already been done, but we're not doing the research and development. There are some, again, this PhD level, what have you, but still, I mean, that when I say we're missing out on that, there's just so like the Jet Propulsion Lab, IBM, Microsoft, Amazon, they just have dedicated R&D departments on whatever the latest and greatest, pushing that edge, that Intel, that NVIDIA, whatever the case may be, that they're pushing that. And so there's just this one, that's that, that person that's sitting in the basement and they just researching.
Right.
You see them in the scary movie.
Right.
Like you're the person, you're the only one person left on the planet that knows about this particular strain of this germ or this worm, and you can help us find a cure or what have you, right? It's the same concept there. But again, that's a deeper dive and a deeper role. But
Mm-hmm.
when I say that, there are, and that was the other thing that came up, was there are literally hedge funds literally paying billions into living longer.
Right.
Like
Right.
like I said, in the Swiss Alps, they had their meeting this year on living
Mm-hmm.
longer, and they just literally just cutting blank checks on, well, okay, help me live longer, right?
Right.
You go ahead and die off, we're living longer,
Right.
right? So we ain't gonna never pass that money down.
Right.
You ain't gonna get none. Yep. So yeah. Restore. I said restored and highly favored. 777 said those bags have to make a return. So how do you go obtain gold? I see websites, but I'm not sure. So I was doing research on gold,
Mm-hmm.
on where to purchase them from,
Mm-hmm.
what size. Like, should you be buying a bar? Should you be buying a coin? Should you and then two, on top of that, which brand of gold should you be buying from, and so forth,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's a lot that goes into that.
It's a lot goes
It's,
into that.
it's a lot that goes into it. Same way with silver. What I've mostly seen, and this is just from my own research, a lot of people just like buying gold coins and
Yep.
keeping them mint and
Mm-hmm.
keeping them encased and keeping them out of the oxygen, and keep them pushing. Right, that's what I've seen. As far as the gold bars, then that gets into a whole of what size, where, in the whole nine. Right. Why a lot of people don't like gold, and when I say a lot of people, I'm talking about, like, if you listen to like Giovanna Money or Dave Ramsey, they was like, gold is like whatever it is, it's whatever it is. If it's worth 7,500 today and it's worth 7,600 in a year, that's just what it is. There's no exponential swing on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm like, well, that don't have to be all of your portfolio. They could be
Right.
part of your portfolio.
Right.
When we're looking at that. So I don't know. I think it's one of those hit or miss type of situations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for a long time, we used to have $2 bills, but now $2 bills are one of those things. Depending on the year in which they were made, they're actually a rare situation. I think before 1961, I think they said they stopped making them. They were supposed to stop making them
Yeah,
in
they
1961.
stopped making them. I actually have a collection of them.
Okay.
My dad passed me down some
Okay.
$2 bills, some $5 bills. I got some from, I think the oldest I got is from 1920,
Mm-hmm.
because my dad was born in 1929.
Okay. Did
Yeah.
you look up how much it was worth?
No, because I when I was doing the research, I just found the site where you can go look at it all up. I just haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay, yeah. The ones that were in 1920, they're rare. I think
Mhm.
I think some of them are. When I looked at it, and don't quote me, there was anywhere worth between 3,500 to 6,500 per
Yeah.
$2 bill.
So I got $2 bills. I got some the large silver dollars.
Mm-hmm,
The
the
large.
big
And I
ones.
got the 50-cent pieces. He had a whole collection of coins and
Mhm.
old money.
I remember the silver dollars.
Yeah.
I don't even, are they in circulation still?
Nope.
No, I don't know if she knows.
And I had the few rare gold plated dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got a lot of those.
Yep. I would evaluate the collection with somebody in front of me.
Right.
In front of me. Right. Just look at it.
So it's funny because as you saying that, then I'm just thinking now I got to get that added to my estate.
Yeah, you gotta get that added to your estate. Right. Some Restored and Highly Favored said some people just want their money, no research unless something happened. Well, that's the problem, right? That's what see this goes into the whole thing with Steve Harvey and Usain Bolt, and there was a football player. I can't think of the football player name. But they just wanted their money invested. Steve just wanted his taxes paid, and he trusted the person. And so the person was pretend like they were sending out the check, but they was
Right. He sent it right to his house. He sent it to his house
for $7 million, and Steve didn't know his taxes was not paid, right? So it's just crazy.
Well, but it's the
right?
same thing with Tyler Perry
Yeah.
and his
Yeah,
assistant.
well, how much was it?
It was a couple million.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm just gonna say, do your due diligence. Look at who's doing what. Yeah, it says Usain Bolt was 12.7 million of his money is missing from his local private investment firm. He as of recently, he still ain't got that back.
Yeah, he ain't gonna get that bad.
He ain't gonna get that back.
No, he ain't gonna get that bad. That's gone. That's on the offshore account. No trace.
You gotta be careful with these people that you're investing in, that you're just blindly trusting. Now, here's a different question, now, because I thought about this. Would you put all your money in one account?
No, you spread it across accounts. Because and is more critical now with just what everything is going on in the banking system. You definitely want to spread it out, but it goes back to the phrase of "don't have all your eggs in one basket." It's always been a true statement, because people only thought that applies to just you physically investing in like a brokerage account, but it really applies to pretty much most of everything that you do.
Okay.
When you especially looking at doing something in mass,
Right.
you never put everything all in one. Even when you think about, just your financial strategy, you just don't have one person. You really need a team, because
Correct.
everybody brings a different insight, but it also give you different perspectives to leverage your dollar.
Right. CPA,
Mm-hmm.
uh, wealth advisor, even the actual planner. Sometimes they're the same, right?
Right.
But even still, though, right? Who's watching them?
Exactly.
You
Listen.
need
You
to be
just
watching them. Who
right.
watching them?
Right.
Right. And every line item, everything.
Right. Because one of the things, when you start, increasing income, money, investments, things like that, you always want another set of eyes anyway.
Right.
And that's only just because, not saying that even the first person is doing a bad job or anything. It's just that you just always want to make sure that you want to protect what you already then accumulated. So it always is. I always look at it as, it's like you going in for a medical procedure, and it's some major. You wouldn't just go with just the first doctor. You will go still get a second opinion just to make sure, especially if it requires you to get cut, you to go under. You just want to make sure that doctor didn't have a bad day, misinterpret some information, or whatever the case may be. You just want to get a second eyes to overlook it. So some of these principles just kind of falls over in other areas.
And while you're sitting there thinking, I was thinking about, it may already exist, like, um they got Eat Right for your blood type.
Right.
So what about the right doctor for your blood type, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about you go to a particular location, they take a stick of your blood, they do an analysis on it, and then based on that analysis, using AI and data, here are the doctors that you need to be in contact with, and here's how they can help you.
Right.
Versus now, it is, let me call around for a primary care doctor. Let me call this, that. Like, that right there would save a lot of time, and also it can also help narrow the scope
Mm-hmm.
of it as well too. And I'm sure it's already out there. I'm sure somebody already does that.
Right.
I just don't know the name of the company, but I mean, I can see that saving a ton of time. Like,
Right.
Especially like, you have this gene, blah 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 blah. You should be seeing this doctor because you have this gene. It affects doom 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 doom. So here are the list of doctors that you need to have, and they all are in contact with each other, or they have some type of partnership with each other
Right.
where they've done that. That's how I see AI assisting in that area.
And then that'll be great, because then let's just say if you get several doctors that handle this particular blood type, then the great thing about that is you now can have more than one doctor as your checks and balance, and you have somewhere to go, versus the way it is now. You just kind of pick one and you just go with whatever they say, and that may not be the best use case for you as the individual.
Right. You got a question in the chat here. Somebody said, restored and highly favored said, what's up with the banks now merging Chase? And I don't think a CPA has a boss. You are the boss of the CPA.
Yes.
You are the boss of the CPA.
Yes. Well, what I think about banks merging? Well, I think that's a loaded question, and I would say it's layers to it. But I think we're gonna see more of that. Because one of the things that's happening, I know you sent me the article, and I was reading already when they first had passed that law. But the government has passed a law where they're going to look into ensure certain individuals beyond the 250,000. One, they're also looking to do some other things as well. But one of the things that the government is thinking about now is telling people to freeze from them taking their money out.
Yep.
So the reason why mergers is going to happen now is because the bank is going to press the big bank little bank concept. So why is that important? Because the bank is trying to keep the confidence of the American people at ease. Because if it gets out of hand, the bank cannot. I know people don't think so, but the bank does not have enough reserve to be able to keep the banking system fully operational.
So would this be a play for Apple to fund the banks?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So would this be a play
absolutely
for Microsoft or Apple that have billions in reserve to fund? Okay, since we on that, because I thought about this. I was because I was looking at it's 7 hours long. I haven't finished it with Warren Buffett and Munger in their last conversation when I'm still looking at it. And it's crazy the amount of money that they made. I think he said, yeah, I think we made $8 billion last month. You know, but with that being said, they could essentially be the bank.
That's true.
What would stop Microsoft, Apple, Warren Buffett, or Berkshire Hathaway getting together and becoming a bank to save banks?
That's a good question. I think that's a good possibility. I think that the problem with that though is I think the government still may not allow that because
they ain't got no money. They don't have a choice.
Right, I know that, but I think the government is going to be worried about now. Once it happened once, now they can monopolize and do it all over. But then they can dissolve all the small banks.
Yeah, but you printed all this money.
Right.
And you said we're supposed to run out in July, right? We're supposed to run out of money in July. But we just gave Ukraine, what, 1.2 billion, 1.7 billion? So which one is it? You either want to save the economy or you don't.
Well, I just think when it comes to them, their interest is more on resources first over our system as a whole, and I stated that way. So I think the more reason why they was quicker to send money somewhere else versus here, because they're looking at the resources and the more money they're going to make by import and export.
I get you.
But that's me though, and I just think that's a tricky question, Tam. That's a real tricky question.
And Stem, no bad. You said why would Charlie Munger, and I mean, the reason would be like one of the questions that was asked in the video was, what would have happened if the government didn't step in to save those banks or other banks? He was like, it would have been catastrophic. He
Yeah,
said, and he was like, it would have been catastrophic worldwide.
right.
Which,
It have brought the entire. It would have brought the almost the internet, almost the entire international banking system to a halt.
right.
It would have been a repetion of the Great Depression, but it would have been worse.
Right. So, but then the question becomes is like, okay, you said the why. Well, Apple has billions sitting in there. I'm pretty sure that between Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway, the whole group, the whole conglomerate, they got billions in cash sitting in reserve, and so does Microsoft. All right, even Google. All right. And if you truly want to save your companies here in the U.S. and where you probably employ a lot of people, and they send their paychecks every month or every bi-monthly for direct deposit, and you imagine you get paid but you can't access your money,
right? But that's what we about to come to.
Right, you get paid but you can't access your money
because they're about to make it where what I think they're going to probably do is they're going to probably have the bank impose a limit.
Well, they already did. Because I talked to some of my friends and they was like, they can only withdraw from their bank accounts. They got a limit imposed of $1,000 a day.
Yeah, see, and that's what I'm saying. So because of that, I think this is this is where now the government is really trying to step in to keep the confidence, and they realizing that even though it's not being publicized in the media like Silicon Valley Bank, but how did First Bank falter? Right. Because people still is taking money out because they still don't trust the banking system right now. So it's not at mass level yet. And I'm not saying it may go there, but I think the bank is paying attention and trying to prevent it from going there. So now they're trying to make sure that they put thresholds in to stop people.
Right, but okay, so but now the banking system fails. I can't go get my money out the bank. Do I still pay my bills? Do we? Is there will be a national I guess a national stop or something imposed to say, well, you that shouldn't affect nobody's credit. You should not be trying to collect the debt. You're just gonna have to put that into, I don't know, some type of forbearance or just stop payment for now on that until we figure out what we need to do. Because at the end of the day, the last thing somebody wants to hear is I can't go to the ATM or I can't pay my bills because my money is sitting in the bank and you won't let me get it out.
Right. But I think what they're going to do is they're going to transpose limits on it. But I think they're going to do it based off of what they always do. They're going to treat it like the tax system. So they're going to break it down based on income levels. Because when you think about the article that you sent me, that's why I think they mentioned that they're going to extend the insurance based on the consumer and, where they fall in income and responsibility as far as if they run in a business, so forth and so on. So if I was to think the government would probably put a limit on how much people can take it out, they're going to do it based off of their income, their responsibilities, or what they could do is have the bank just do a archive run of how much money they normally take out per month and then put a limit based on individual. Because now you got to think about if more people coming to take their money out, that means they're going to have less people in the brick and mortar buildings. So now they're going to use that as leverage to get them to do something so they can get outcome back out.
So basically what I hear is I need to put my money in the Cayman Islands.
Right. Or a brokerage account.
That's one.
Yeah,
Right? But I still,
Swiss
I
account.
still think there's gonna be limits on the brokerage account.
Yeah, I think that's gonna come too.
And you
So I
talking
think
about
they're gonna hit the bank first. But again, I don't necessarily know because it's not more people. It's two separate systems in a sense from the standpoint of it's more people in the banking system because the banking system is not just for people putting money out because every time they put $1 in, they loan out 10. And I think with the brokerage accounts is what you put in is what you can get out, and they're not necessarily loaning it like the banks are.
Right. So, yeah, so I agree with the brokerage account. All right. But what about in terms of overseas, your Caymans, your Swiss accounts, the other alternatives where people like, no, I'm not fooling with none of y'all.
See, well, I think that they ain't gonna put too much regulation on that because they already know that that's to a certain demographic and class.
Right.
So they're going to always get a little bit more parental treatment. I don't make the rules. I'm just sharing it because I think that's why I think they started with the article that you sent me where they already included. We're going to separate. So they're just giving you the creative look on how we're going to separate and make people stand off and based on what they do and their income and their responsibilities.
Okay.
Because think about it. Because look at how they saved the people at Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah.
And
they had to save them.
Right. They had to. Right, but
let's be clear
about
that.
Right. They had to.
They had to save them.
But my point is though, but that was still most of the people in that was already pretty wealthy, had really successful businesses.
Most of them were startups too.
Right, but still, most of them were startups, but they were startups where a lot of those startup investors, venture capitalists, they already had proven they made money elsewhere or done it at some point before. Is my point.
Gotcha.
So because they done that, I think that the government said, okay, well, we can't let this group falter because there's so many people below that, especially if they was the owner of the company, then that they're going to now affect everybody else's paychecks.
Gotcha.
So I think because of that, then when you're talking about alternative investments, and I think that's also why alternative investment is becoming more of a norm, is because it now is certain things that the government really ain't gonna get their hands inside of. Because the thing about alternative investments and the SEC is that you already accept and know there's a level of risk that nobody's going to back you on. Right. The only thing that they're not going to allow is you to do anything fraudulent.
Okay. What about insurance policies? What about the annuities?
See, the insurance
and the whole life. All right. There's no, hey, you can only have up to 250,000 in this.
Right. So the insurance may be different because how insurance work is they have to keep that money in almost like a charter account. Correct. Separate from their funds. So I think that may be okay. However, if it go in mass, I don't know. But I think they may be okay because if I'm not mistaken, part of the requirements of an insurance company is they had to consider, let's just say if I think it's 75-80% of their death claims is due, can they pay it out? And that just allow them to justify if they can stay active as a company. I don't remember the numbers, but I know it's something of that nature. So I think they're going to be okay.
And then I know they have to have.
But you gonna have a lot more people probably passing too because they be trying to get the insurance money.
They gotta have so much in reserve, but I forget like how much Mass Mutual and Mass Mutual, Fidelity, not Fidelity, but what's the one I'm looking at? Mass Mutual. What's the other insurance company? The other big one.
You have Mass Mutual. Gosh, what is
New York Life?
Yeah, New York Life, and it's another one. I can't get the name.
Reserves. I'm just curious, do they publicize what they have in reserves? Okay, yeah, so 30.7 billion surplus, including the asset valuation reserve, and 16.5 billion in total dividends and benefits paid to policy owners.
Right.
That's for New York Life. That's what they got sitting in reserves. As far as Apple in reserve, let's look
I
up.
think they got trillions of dollars. They're a
Yes.
$1 trillion company.
Apple, as of December the 22nd, they had 346 billion in reserves, in cash reserves, and Microsoft has um, 136 billion in reserves,
What about Google?
and then Google has 100 and Alphabet itself has 117 billion in liquid reserves compared to 102 billion net debt for Apple.
Gotcha. So yeah, so I think
So that's why I said those companies like that have enough money where they could scoop in and not necessarily build them out, but take ownership of those companies. They already have the infrastructure for a banking system as well. So
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think the government gonna allow it though, because then they
Don't have
can
no choice.
monopolize.
they don't have no choice. They
Yeah,
don't have no more money.
right. I
They
know.
don't have no more money. They don't have no choice. What you gonna do? You just gonna let it fall? So you cut me deep, Shrek. That's what you gonna say? You just cut me deep?
That'll be interesting to see. Cause the thing is it'll band-aid the problem, but then it make a long-term it'll band-aid the solution, but it make a long-term problem. Because now you just now allow them to be becoming the monopoly.
You gotta take these hits, Sway. You gotta take these hits, Sway. Yep.
Salute to Peter Investor M. Salute to STEM Nomad.
Still Nomad said insurance companies have to meet a required reserve number of claims they could potentially be liable to pay out. Yep. Shout out to Peter Investor, but that's just what I'm saying. When I was sitting here looking at it, I was like, where else would you put your money? I immediately thought about insurance companies.
Yeah, because even brokerage accounts, believe it or not, they have insurance almost similar to insurance companies.
Yep.
Because they got to make sure that investment company don't dissolve, because that's part of their requirements as a brokerage company, institutional investor.
Are they up to 500,000 or $1 million?
It's 500,000.
500,000. Right?
Yep, 500,000, and they also have the Securities Protection Investment Company, the SPIC. They also have insurance that covers all the brokerage account companies. So that way, if they ever was the default or dissolve, then whoever the client still can get all their money out their accounts. So the bank is the only one, because the reason why the bank is just under so much pressure is because how their operation work. Whereas you put $1 in, they loan out 10, and they doing that through financing mortgages, auto loans. That's why the auto industry is taking a hit now, because now the banks are strict on wanting to get them money so people can purchase their vehicles.
All right, so here's a different question. If the bank like a Bank of America or Wells Fargo or even a USAA, which is credit union,
right? But they different though, credit union. Yeah, they different.
Was it SIPC or SPIC?
No, they still cover under the FDIC, but how their infrastructure and their rules work is different from the bank, because they can't just loan that, because they're community based.
Right.
So because they're charter and all that stuff, they do their stuff a little bit different.
Right. I thought they were SPIC covered for credit unions.
No, they FDIC.
I thought it was. That I may be thinking about brokerage accounts.
Yeah, yeah, they FDIC. However, they don't fall under different guidelines than the banks.
Okay, so let's ask this question: if Wells Fargo and Bank of America collapsed today, what would happen to the Black community? You laughing? I'm asking a question.
They all gonna run down there and take their money out, and it's gonna be turmoil because they can't get their money out. They going off. They fighting the tellers. They stealing off on the managers.
Still no man said that. Still no man. I don't think so. I don't see that. I don't think no people gonna be able to come out the bank.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's gonna be a stand. It's gonna be a riot. Everything is gonna get tore up. And even if you didn't work in the bank, you look like you work in the bank, you're gonna get beat up. That's all I can say.
I don't know. They got some chats out there.
You can get beat up for looking like you know what's going on.
Oh yeah. Let's see if they got the status and demographic. This may be wrong. This may be like people who work there. This may be people who work there. I think this may be wrong from what I'm seeing. And it was like, yeah, this is employees. I want to know the number of bank accounts. Where we putting most of our money at? That's what I want to know.
You really want to know?
Mm-hmm.
We put our money in Gucci, Jordans.
I know what we consume at. I know that. Where we putting our money at? Where are we putting our money at? That's what I want to know. Let me see. Yeah, that's One United. I just curious as to where we're putting our money at.
That's a good question.
That was it.
Well, Tam, we're gonna get ready to wrap it up, you all. Tam, any last remarks, closing words?
No, other than do your research. Make sure you stay informed on what's going on. Look at creating your brokerage account if you don't already have one, and as well to look into, do the history on why these different funds were created and how people move around, including family offices. Right, that's another one.
Well, you all say do exactly that, and make sure that you do due diligence for whatever you do, and continue to focus on what your goals, your dreams are, and in the process, find you some good people, build some great networks, and go out and get whatever you want to get, because the sky's the limit, and we only limited it to our beliefs and our network. So with that being said, this is Tim, also known as the Intentional Millionaire, and this is Tam over from Women in Linux. So make sure you don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, get over. If you're not part of the Women in Linux group, make sure you get over, subscribe to Women in Linux, and we're going to catch you all in the next video. Y'all have a great night. Be safe, get some sleep, and we catch you on the next one.
All right, y'all be safe.